sitting at 140 miles per hour. Gusts still at 155. The pressure at least a little bit steadier right now at 952 millibars, but currently 200 miles south-southeast of Lake Charles. This thing is moving northwest at 16 miles per hour, so that does put us at landfall in about, say, 12 to 12 and a half hours. So right on time frame with, say, midnight or just a little bit after. But this is something to take very seriously. You can see the National Hurricane Center still forecasting it to be about 145 miles per hour whenever it approaches landfall. But I'm going to strongly suggest that this is potentially going to be a Category 5 storm. It only takes 157 miles per hour in terms of those winds to become a Category 5, and you're not going to notice the difference between 10 miles an hour's worth of wind. This is going to cause extreme damage. It's going to take roofs off of homes. It's going to destroy structures that aren't well equipped to handle strong winds, and it's going to be a serious problem. We got tornadoes to worry about. We're going to have the eye wall to worry about as it approaches as we head late into the evening, and that's going to be something that we're going to continue, that you're going to be without power for days, and this is something that you're going to have to live with if you begin to stay here. This is not something to take lightly. We're not on air just to tell you that this is going to be another storm. This is not another storm. This is going to be a history maker for Southwest Louisiana, and this is going to be something we're going to be talking about for a long time to come. And as I mentioned, we're already seeing squalls beginning to move through. Here's a look at that radar. You can see now we have a tornado warning in effect for Jeff Davis Parish, and this goes until 1:30. So let's go ahead and pull up the velocity on this storm, and you can see what we're actually looking at. Let's see. So they're looking for a quick spin up probably right here just towards the west of the Lake Arthur region. We're going to kind of go backwards a little bit and see if we can't find. It's kind of a messy little setup because we're kind of in some radar continuation, but as we slide a little bit further to the south, I believe it's right near the Gaydon region. If I pull up those warnings once again, we'll kind of pull up. Gaydon is where they are saying this tornado warning is out for. You can see Lake Arthur now in the middle of this tornado warning, pulling back up that velocity once again. Probably somewhere right around the Lake Arthur region. If I had to guess, we're looking somewhere right in this general vicinity. Right there is a little couplet, as well as back to here. And these are the tropical rain bands. These are what cause these quick spin-up tornadoes. They're very fast. They're not necessarily the strongest, but couple that with the winds outside, it's definitely going to be a very serious scenario. So if you're in Lake Arthur and you're still there, yeah, you can definitely see right here in this general vicinity is where we are tracking the potential for a tornado. And this is something that you're definitely going to have to watch. This is something that is going to continue to race off towards the north and east. I'll pull up the radar once again and put that loop on there that you can see. But moving in towards Lake Arthur, you need to be in your safe shelter right this minute, as there is a tornado warning in effect until 1:30. So go ahead, get to your lowest shelter. If you are still planning on to evacuate, the time is now. But don't go out if you're in Lake Arthur right now. As I mentioned, there is that tornado warning. Let this pass. It'll be through you pretty quickly. Outside of that, still very gusty winds. No severe thunderstorm warning on that. But as I mentioned, there is that tornado warning for areas. We'll kind of stick with this storm just a little bit since there is that tornado warning heading towards the Lake Arthur vicinity. So let's go ahead and pull up that velocity once again. You can see right there in this general vicinity is where we are tracking that little couplet, the greens and the reds. The green going towards the radar, red going away from the radar. So this is what we're tracking for the potential to cause an isolated tornado. So this is something definitely to watch as well. We mentioned the storm surge as a threat. We mentioned the heavy rain is going to cause flooding concerns, and we mentioned that we're going to be watching for the potential to see isolated tornadoes. And here's just a reason why. This is far away from the center of circulation. If I go ahead and pull that radar out and look back at where the actual center of circulation is, this is just the first band moving through. Very heavy rainfall, very tropical rain bands. Once this rain band pushes into Lake Charles, I'll pull up our sky cam to show you just how heavy this rain is, how strong the winds are as well. But as I mentioned, this is the center of circulation is well off towards our south. We are pretty far to the north. Let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and pull out the tracker, and I'll show you from downtown Lake Charles to the center of circulation is roughly 186 miles away. So we're seeing those tropical rain bands continuing to move through the region, but we're going to continue to track this for you as well. Let's go ahead and go back into the ground level right where we're tracking that tornado warning once again for Jeff Davis Parish, as well as the northern portions of Cameron. I will strongly say that the northern portion of Cameron Parish, I'm not quite as worried about right now in terms of the latest velocities, but we'll go back in right around the Lake Arthur region. This is probably past Lake Arthur at this point as fast as these storms are moving, but you can see right there that couplet just to the north and the east of Lake Arthur, of downtown Lake Arthur. This is going to be moving off towards the north and the west, so heads up towards Thornwell. This should go north of you, but go ahead, get in your safe shelter right now towards Niblett. This is something that we're going to continue to track, and if it holds together, it's going to be moving into Calcasieu Parish pretty quickly. You can see maybe holding together and impacting at the current rate it's going towards Bell City if it holds together. As I mentioned, though, these tornadoes are very quick in spin up in type, and they're not going to be the long-lived ones, but there's still something, another added factor to this storm. So let's go ahead and I'll take you back and look at the visible satellite once again, because we are still tracking and talking about Hurricane Laura. This is definitely not your typical afternoon and evening thunderstorm type setup with those tornadoes. This is a very dangerous this is definitely something that's very dire. You can see the concentric circle of this storm. Nice outflow indicating a very healthy and strong storm. And it's only going to get stronger as it approaches southwest Louisiana. And this is going to be a storm, as I keep mentioning, that is going to be a life or death situation for areas that or for areas along and south of the I-10 corridor, even areas to the north. You might not have to deal with much in the way of storm surge, but you're going to have those strong winds, 120 miles per hour or greater at times. So this is something to go ahead and watch for. So as I mentioned, make sure you do not take this lightly. This is something very serious, and we'll go back to the radar once again for this tornado warning that is out for Lake Arthur. You can see this storm racing off towards the north and the west right there. We'll go ahead and put the velocities back up just now towards the north of Lake Arthur. Kind of messy, but in this general vicinity right here is where we are tracking that tornado warning. So this is a very serious situation as well. We're continuing to watch that water level rise along the lake shore. Here, I'll pull up the Skycam looking across the Westlake vicinity right there at the Yacht Club. You can see some of that water beginning to come on shore, and this water is only going to continue to rise as we head throughout the duration of this storm, and it's going to be very strong right there. You can see this water could potentially make it all the way to the interstate. This is something we're going to be watching. 9 to 13 foot worth of storm surge possible in areas of downtown Lake Charles. This is a life or death situation. If you haven't left yet, you need to do it now. We're not going to have too much in the way of time as we go throughout the rest, because the conditions are going to continue to deteriorate, and by the time we reach this evening and this afternoon, we're going to see those storms continuing to move their way on. Winds going to be gusting to tropical storm force and or greater. Here is a look at the winds right now. 25 miles per hour in Jennings, 35 there in Jennings, 30 miles per hour in DeQuincy. So it's a very strong gusty day already, and these winds are only going to be increasing throughout the rest of this afternoon and to this evening, and they're going to be gusting to hurricane force by the time we reach sunset or just a little bit after. So as I mentioned, if you're going to leave now, you need to do it now within the next, say, 40 minutes to an hour, because after that, things are going to be looking much worse out there. But once again, we are still covering that tornado warning for Lake Arthur. We'll go ahead and zoom in just a little bit closer to this storm as it moves off towards the north and the west. We'll go ahead and pull up the velocity on this system, or on this cell itself. It's to the north of downtown Lake Arthur, excuse me, but really not that well defined right now. So these are these quick little spin ups that we continue to talk about, and we're going to continue to track this for you as well. This does go until 1:30 this afternoon, so we're going to stay with you as always, and we're going to continue to update you. But this is a very serious situation out there as we're dealing with very heavy tropical rain bands, very strong winds, and we're going to continue to track this for you. Meteorologist Ben Terry is here in the building, and he's going to go ahead and update you with a little bit more.
Jacob, there we go. All right, yeah, we most bands out there, and I'm already concerned about a possibility of maybe some street flooding here in some spots out there. We've had reports of some wind damage as well already over near Sulphur with that initial band of rain. We have tornado warnings that are out here. That's going to continue. This is not going to be the first tornado warning that we deal with. This is going to be first one of probably dozens of tornado warnings that we see out of this storm. So, you know, we talk about tornado warnings being a bad thing, and yeah, it's bad, but we have a catastrophic event on the way, and I can't focus on enough that, yeah, we're going to have tornado warnings. Let's just get past that. These are fast spin-up tornadoes, and they're going to occur at any one of these bands, strong bands that move ashore, but you still got time to get out of here. If you're thinking about Lake Charles, you got to make a decision. decision within the next hour if you're going to evacuate our area. Where's the best place to go? Well, honestly, it's going to be to the west, as far west as you can go, because you're going to be moving away from this landfalling Category 5 hurricane that will be moving its way into our coastline here in less than 12 hours. We're talking about conditions. It's what's the time now? 1:30. In about 4 hours, you're not going to be not really going to be wanting to drive. So that's why you got to make that decision now if you're going to get out. This storm is going to continue to strengthen. Let me stress again, it's going to continue to strengthen, and it's going to come in with the force of any storm in history here in Southwest Louisiana. We cannot compare this to Rita. We can't compare this to Audrey. We cannot compare this to Ike. All those storms in your repertoire, I've heard all the stories. You know, they're bad. This is going to be worse. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, if you've been here through those hurricanes and you've dealt with problems, you know, they're going to be exponentially higher. And that's what we're going to be looking at as this system moves closer to our coastline. I know I sound like I'm just giving you dire information here because it is a dire situation, and I'm not sure how else to explain it to you. Except just tell you to get out right now. I mean, that's all you can do as this storm gets closer and closer to Southwest Louisiana. So again, within the next hour, if you plan to evacuate Lake Charles, even points north, that's the time frame that you need to be making that decision and finalizing those plans right now. And you know, I got a meteorologist, Zach Fradella, in the studio, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, if you are planning to evacuate, you go west. I mean, that's going to be your best option at this point. I know we don't say that very often. We don't tell people to go east and west along a hurricane evacuation. It sounds counterintuitive to what we've been taught to tell you as a meteorologist. We always say go north. But this storm is moving north, so you're going to be dealing with impacts far inland here as this thing makes a landfall. They're going to be total loss of power here. If you go to Alexandria, you're not going to be, well, you're going to be probably not dealing with the same extent of the winds, but you're still going to be dealing with no power, disruptions here all throughout Southwest Louisiana and Central Louisiana. So that's not a place that I would really recommend going. If you're already there, say you're watching this stream and you're already in a place like Alexandria or Shreveport, better off there than you are here. I'm not saying you need to evacuate if you're already in those locations, but if you're in Lake Charles or Cameron, Beauregard Parish, Allen, Jeff Davis, your best option that way, San Antonio, Austin, anywhere west, Dallas would be a good place to go. Just do not think that you would be able to really go north, maybe to Shreveport and get out of these hurricane conditions, because that's the direction this storm is headed. And again, this is a situation that is of dire emergency for our area. This is a catastrophic event that's moving our way, and we're doing all we can right now to give you that warning. I know a lot of people wait to the last minute. We're in a COVID-19 pandemic right now, and that plays a role. I know it. You know, we're wearing masks here in the station every time we walk outside because this is still a serious problem with COVID-19. And yes, I understand that's probably weighing on your mind right now, especially if you've had a loved one contracted or die from it. So you probably don't want to have to leave your house. And I understand, I've been working from home since March, you know, but this is a situation now to where you have to outweigh the consequences of the risks versus you're going to likely be, you know, at a much more higher rate of suffering if you stay here and not make that decision to evacuate. You're going to be safer than sorry, and you're going to make that decision now, and you're going to be glad you did after this is all over, because this is going to be rewriting the history of Southwest Louisiana as we know it with this landfall. We're not going to have places that we're used to when we come back. They're going to be gone. If not, they're going to be severely damaged, and that's going to be not something you want to have to ride out tonight. So I can't stress that enough. Again, I've been talking about this over and over and over again, but you have to make that decision here within the next hour. We're making some decisions right now in our building of what we're going to do. We are officially going to evacuate this building. So we just got the word, and we are probably going to have to make some contingency plans. Thankfully, we are a great television station, so we have affiliates all across this state. We have great folks out there. We have folks that work in Shreveport. We have folks that work in Baton Rouge. In fact, some past KPLC meteorologists that you may be aware of. We have Steve Caparata that works at AFB, And we have meteorologist Zach Fardella right off the set here. He drove over here this morning from New Orleans to help us out. And, now we are having to leave because this is not a safe place to be in. So I don't know how else to describe it other than we're not going to put ourselves in a situation of facing an imminent death here or potentially life-threatening conditions. It's just not worth it. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to stay on the air, mind you, with a broadcast. We're not leaving you, Southwest Louisiana. So I know, yes. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to stay here for now. At some point, though, you're going to notice things transition as our friends over at WAFB take over our broadcast. And they're going to be providing you with the same emergency information that we're telling you right now. And I know they're probably listening to this feed. I'm sure a lot of people are out there. And let's go back over to let's show the folks the visible satellite here. I want folks to see what we have coming. I want to drill into your mind what this is. I mean, this is a catastrophic hurricane. I don't know how else to say it. This is the beginnings of what we're seeing now, only getting worse over the hours ahead. So if you do not make that decision right now of where you're going to go with you and your family, you are going to regret it. Let me just say that. You're going to regret it. You may not survive it. So let's just say that. I don't know how else to say it other than decisions need to be wrapped up, finalized. We're on the air. I hope that folks are listening. Maybe somebody out there in TV land is listening to this right now and is making that decision to leave. If it saves a life, then that's great. I don't care. Just get out of here. I don't know how else to say it other than you need to make that decision and get out of harm's way while there is time. There is a good likelihood, Zach, Jacob, it's going to be a Category 5 when this thing comes ashore, most likely. And that just exponentially creates even more problems when it comes to damage, wind, surge. All of that just goes up exponentially once you get up to that Category 5 status. Hurricane Michael. Do you know somebody from Panama City Beach, Florida, that went through Michael? That strengthened to a Category 5. It leveled Panama City Beach. It crippled Panama City for months. That's what we're looking at here. So do you really want, and I plead with you, do you really want to have to deal with that? Nothing is going to be open here. You're not going to have a grocery store to go to for weeks. You're going to be in a food line. You're going to be getting food from people who have kind hearts, and they're going to come down here after this is over because we are the United States of America. We are good people, and people are going to help us out. But that's the situation you're going to be in if you decide to stay here. Is it worth it? Is it worth it for you? Is it worth it for your family? I have to say the answer is no. So at this point, finalize those preparations. If you have not left Southwest Louisiana, and let me stress, you got about an hour to make that decision. Our portion of Southwest Louisiana is the most susceptible to storm surge flooding in other portions of the Gulf of Mexico, considering our slope of the land. So we've had major hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico of this size, but all points along the Gulf Coast are not equal. We have different impacts along Florida than you would see in Alabama or Mississippi. Southwest Louisiana, as vulnerable as we are, we've been lucky. We've been really, really lucky all this time because we know we have maps that show it, that we are the most susceptible to storm surge flooding. And it all has to do with the lay of the land. And a storm of this magnitude is going to be catastrophic, whether it's Category 4 or it's Category 5. Don't worry about it. We have the storm. It's here. And it's not going anywhere except closer to Southwest Louisiana here over these next few hours. So we're closing in on that window. And again, the landfall as of the 1 o'clock advisory is still going to be sometime around midnight. Here's the position at 7 o'clock. Winds are at 145 miles per hour, possibly approaching maybe Category 5 strength. I mean, we weren't talking about a Category 4 yesterday. We said, even though the Hurricane Center track didn't call for it, that it was going to be a 4. And look at it now. It could be a 5. So I don't know how to stress enough that that's a possibility at this point as it makes a landfall again late tonight. So you got to make that decision quickly of where you're going to go. Like I've already mentioned, go west as far as you can and hope you have somewhere to come back to. That's kind of where we're at this moment. We're 200 miles from the coastline, probably a little less than that now. We're already seeing some issues. We have severe thunderstorm warnings. We have tornado warnings. Let's go back over to the radar. What are you going to be looking at if you leave right now? Certainly something that would be better than waiting. You're going to drive through a heck of a lot of rain here. We've even had some of these bands produce tornado warnings out there. Your risk at this point of driving through a tornado warning is lower than you would if you were to decide to stay here and see the effects of a Category 5 hurricane. Weigh those options. I know we talked about that already. You know, these bands could produce a spin-up tornado. That's just what happens. Okay, I was just making sure I was good here. I had some, Brian in the back, if at any point we need to transition our coverage over, just let me know, and we'll take it from there. But again, this setup that we have right now is producing a band of heavy rain, and it's really from over near Jennings along Highway 90 and I-10. It's moving toward the west, so in Lake Charles, we heard a little thunder outside the station here. We see some more of this kind of in a training effect moving over us right now. So again, this is the outermost band of a powerful hurricane, and as we go through time, those bands are only going to increase, but most importantly, the wind and the surge are what we're going to be dealing with here in southwest Louisiana. We're currently on the air providing you with emergency information. Life-threatening storm moving to southwest Louisiana. We have to make some action right now. Take some action right now and make that decision. Again, this could be life or death. I do not know how else to say it. I've already told you at some point we are going to be leaving our studios here in downtown Lake Charles because it's just not safe. It's just not safe for us to be here. It's not safe for you to be here. I'm gonna be alive after this storm, and you know I want you alive as well. And I don't want you to have to go through the amount of human suffering that will happen after this thing makes landfall. It's going to be something that we're in a modern age now. We talk about this. We had 600 plus people die in Audrey after a landfall of a storm of likely weaker magnitude than this made landfall. What happened was, well, back in 1957. Television stations didn't provide you with this kind of information. We did not have satellite technology in 1957. So what happened was we didn't have the radar technology that we have now. So what happened was, history lesson for you, the storm rapidly intensified. That was in 1957. Just like what we're seeing with this storm, except what happened was it moved in faster than the best forecast they could give in that day and age. At that point in time, television stations would sign off the air at night. KPLC would go off the air at 10 o'clock at night. People went to bed in Cameron along the coast, and they thought they had another day to get out, and they didn't. And over 600 people were washed out into the Gulf of Mexico. That is what happened with Hurricane Audrey. That's the story behind it. Could we have done better as broadcasters back then? I think it's arguably yes, and arguably yes answer to that. Are we doing better now with giving you warnings? Yes, but you have to get through that head of yours and listen to what we're telling you. You know, I hear all about it. People, they have their biases toward news and things, and they think they can tune things out and they can't believe things they hear on the news. Well, this is here. Look at it. It's right here on the satellite picture. We're not making this up. This is a catastrophic hurricane moving toward our coastline. And again, let's go back over and take a look at the particulars on the storm of the 1 o'clock advisory that we have on this system, and it's still strengthening. So here we are right now. It's a Category 4 moving northwest at 16 miles per hour, and it's going to be approaching southwest Louisiana here, likely as a Category 5 hurricane over the next 10 hours. Let's just say it. That's when the eye is going to make landfall. It's not going to matter by then. 10 hours is too late. If you have not already made that decision to leave within the next hour, you're going to be dealing with conditions that are not going to be suitable for traveling on the roadways. Look at the direction it's heading, northwest at 16, but it's going to curve. It's going to curve right at the landfall. It's going to go right up over Cameron Parish. You're taking the core punch of a catastrophic hurricane, and most of our area is going to be in the right front quadrant of this. So the storm surge will be maximized. I was talking to meteorologist Zach Fradella about this earlier. The angle of approach this storm could take, if it's a little bit more perpendicular to the coastline compared to Rita, could mean even higher surge for our area. It's going to wash it right up into Calcasieu Lake. It's going to be like a brick wall. It's going to come all the way up into Lake Charles, and there's most likely going to be water where I'm standing right now. And that's why we're having to make the decision for our own safety to get out of this building before it's too late. So again, that is the faced dilemma that we have, and decisions need to be made quickly if you're in Southwest Louisiana. You can't replace belongings. You can't replace your son, your daughter, your mother, your father. So think about that. You want those people here after this storm is over. I don't care if you live in Gillis. I don't care if you live in Moss Bluff. You're not going to want to stay here in this particular storm. I know there's people out there. I know them. I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, I'm not concerned about this storm. What in the heck are you thinking? I don't understand it. I do not fathom. It does not. And I think part of this, there's an optimism bias that we have as human beings, that we think that it's not going to be quite as bad as we thought. We were lucky in storms past. Hurricane Harvey, for instance, look at that. We were very fortunate in Southwest Louisiana that we did not have the type of flooding that they saw in Houston. Could that have been forecast? No, we were lucky. We were very lucky with Tropical Storm Imelda. We were lucky. I mean, that thing was flooding Port Arthur and Beaumont an hour away from here. They had water in the city, in homes, and we were over here watching it, an hour to the east. So, at some point, your card is dealt with tropical weather. It's the price we pay for living where we live. Beautiful sunsets, the most beautiful lakefront, in my opinion, in Southwest Louisiana. And you argue that with me. Go anywhere. Go to New Orleans. It's a whole different atmosphere here. The people are different here. It's just that we're a tight-knit community. We've been through it before, but this is going to be the most testing time for our Southwest Louisiana life as you know it right now in this generation. This is going to be the most trying time of recovery. And you do not want to be here for when things get messed up, because it's going to be very, very bad, and you may not have a home to come back to. Let's just be honest. We take the right front quadrant of a Category 5 hurricane. I showed you the map this morning. I don't even show it. Catastrophic wind damage. How else do you say? And you get people talking about, well, what if it's a Category 6? What's worse than catastrophic wind damage? It's gone. What's worse? So there's really no other adjective to describe it. If this thing comes in any stronger than it is right now, and it's possible that it does. I'm not saying every building is going to be leveled in Southwest Louisiana, but there's a good likelihood you could have structural damage. Your roof could be blown off. You may have problems that you're not going to want to be in a home for, nor were you going to want your family subjected to. So again, these are decisions that you need to make right now over the next hour about where you're going to take yourself and your family as this storm gets closer and closer to Southwest Louisiana. Again, as of the latest advisory, we're at 140 mile per hour winds, gusts to 155 miles per hour. Go back over to radar. What you got, Zach?
Look how the rain is very heavy on I-10 right now, but we are going to get a break. Drive it south.
Yeah. Okay, so what Zach is telling me here is if you're leaving right now and you're going on I-10, you're going to be going through, at least in Lake Charles, some very heavy rainfall. But look at this. There's a gap between, let's say, west of Crowley, there near the Acadia Parish line, going east. So it's not going to be continuous rain. And check this out. It's moving. So at some point, this very intense band of rain that's over us right now, that's already producing some severe wind gusts, is going to be lifting north of I-10. Look underneath here. It's going to give you a window of time to get out. So don't use what we are seeing right now in this current moment as far as the torrential downpours that some of us are seeing. We're going to catch some breaks. There's still that opportunity as we move our way through the next few hours to move to that safe place. But as we've already been telling you about, with the storm's approach, with the track that it's taking, if you are getting out of Calcasieu Parish, Cameron Parish, Beauregard Parish, or Allen Parish, if you go far west as you can, you're going to be moving away from this storm. And that's where you're not going to have the impacts. So if you want electricity, if you like air conditioning, If you like restaurants to eat at, if you like grocery stores to shop at, I would say go west as far as you can. Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, all those locations are going to not have impacts from this storm. And you got time to get out now. Even if you were to hit the road now, you would still be out of the area of danger, of imminent danger in time before this potentially Category 5 hurricane moves toward our coastline over the next several hours. At that, we will see, is anybody else mic'd up? Wade's mic'd up. I'll talk for a little longer. Okay. I know he's getting himself set up for a little more longer as we make the transition over to our sister station before they take over the broadcast. And, I've lived in Southwest Louisiana for 9.5 years. Wade was here with Hurricane Rita. We obviously had it was a different time then. We were not looking at some of the things that we're dealing with now with the medical pandemic that we have. Okay, I think you're on, Wade. I think you're on, so it works. Things are a little bit different now. So contingency plans for how we're going to operate are a little bit different now. We're in the digital age. We're not in analog like we were in 2005. So technology changes. Adapting to that is having to make us really scoot around and get some things prepared for us to be able to continue broadcasting. But don't worry, I know we're broadcasting on Facebook and on KPLCTV.com news app. That's not going away. So even if you see us disappear for a short period of time, we are still going to be broadcasting. We're going to have some experts that are going to be with you, walking you through what we have to deal with here over the next several hours. That's a catastrophic hurricane moving right toward Southwest Louisiana. And just a shout out to all my friends that are live captioning this. I see that over on the screen. I'm sure you guys are enjoying everything I'm saying here. There's a lot to digest. And I know there's a lot going on across Southwest Louisiana right now. We're dealing with a major hurricane heading this direction, and we are going to certainly be watching this closely, but we, like I mentioned, are going to be taking the necessary action to protect ourselves as well as what you should be doing here at this particular moment. So let's go back over now one more time, and again, we have the benefits of having the visible satellite, which shows you exactly what we will be dealing with here in the next few hours. And I mean, it's a pretty much tells a story right there with what we have barreling towards our area. A major catastrophic hurricane. And that's what we're dealing with right now as we move our way through the next few hours. We're just checking radar to see if we have anything new as far as warnings. And it looks like here at the moment, I do not see any current severe thunderstorm warnings. So, as Zach pointed out to me a while ago, if you're heading out right now, there's going to be a band of heavy rain set up right over I-10. But at some point, that's going to lift north. So right now we have heavy rain west of Jennings, moving along I-10 right through Lake Charles. There are some lightning strikes with that as well, but that eventually will lift its way to the north and move out of the I-10 corridor, giving you a little bit better time, travel conditions that is, on the roads if you still make that call here to leave within the next hour. So that may kind of clear up some confusion as to, I know there's a storm out there right now, and it probably has you a little bit uncertain as to the conditions. Wade? All right. And is your mic on?
See, this is on microphone number 5, guys.
You're on.
And it is on. Okay. Let's reset everything real quick. Let's go and let's talk about the latest information on Hurricane Laura. I'm going to let you guys kind of drive graphics, if you will, but winds right now sustained at 140 miles per hour. That is in the middle of the range of a Category 4 hurricane. Remember, this is the scenario I tried to drive home yesterday, that this storm could go through what's called a rapid intensification cycle, and that's exactly what's happened. And unfortunately, it may continue right up until landfall. That's a question we'll just have to wait and see, and really that's semantics at this point, because I want you to prepare for the worst case scenario, which is this making landfall as at least a Category 4 hurricane. Please, if anyone is out there still anywhere, especially in Cameron Parish, Calcasieu Parish, Jeff Davis Parish, remember, this is going to be by far worse than any storm that's happened in our lifetime. Meaning Rita is not a good example of what this storm is going to do. Rita was nothing compared to this. And I don't want to make light of that. I know Rita was horrible. I was here for that. Trust me, I realize that. But I want to put this in terms for those of you that are still staying, that hopefully will drive home that this is a very serious problem that is going to get worse with time. So what you should do if you are absolutely staying here in Southwest Louisiana, here's what I want you to do in the coming hours. You've got a little time. I would encourage you to leave, but if you're not going to leave, if you are going to stay, what you should do, hopefully you're in a safe place away from the greatest threat of storm surge. If storm surge is an issue where you live, it's not a question of should you leave. You have to leave. Storm surge is not something, you don't want to be in a building and potentially have flooding occur when you are in it. So if you could have flooding from surge, go. If not, and if you're absolutely set on staying, I encourage you to treat this like you would if it was a tornado, just a much longer event, meaning you need to find the most interior room of your home. And I do want to stress, this is really more for those of you that are north of Interstate 10 that are going to be riding it out, because most areas south of I-10 are pretty much in a surge issue and really should be adhering to that part I just said a minute ago about you should be leaving. If you're north of Interstate 10 and you feel like you want to stay, please make this in your mind be like the preparations you would do if it was a tornado. Find the most interior room of your home. Go there during the height. You don't have to do this now. This isn't something at this moment you have to do, but it's certainly something you need to figure out now where that room is at. Preferably a bathroom, closet, something like that. You really want something without windows if it's absolutely possible. Take a mattress, especially if you have a smaller mattress, like kind of a twin size, maybe a full-sized mattress or something. Depending on how many of you are in there, though, a mattress. And the reason why the mattress, that would protect you from any sort of flying debris, or at least add another layer of protection as far as flying debris. Another thing you can kind of think of is a bicycle helmet. If you have one of those, it may sound silly, but put it on during the height of the storm, because this storm's strong enough, it could destroy a building around you. So if walls or roofs collapse on top of you, having another layer of protection would always be a good thing. So do that. But another thing, this is not something we would normally tell you in a tornado to do, but it is something you need to do. In this scenario, plan on taking some snacks into that same room with you. Bottles of water, any sort of snacks to get you by, because this hurricane is not going to be a 10-minute thing and done like in a tornado. This is going to be a multi-hour event dealing with hurricane force winds over an extended period of time. So please, by all means, take some snacks in there. That way you can stay in there. Another thing, have an extension cord where you can keep your phone plugged in. We want you to be able to stay up with our signal as long as humanly possible. Of course, the cell network will come into play there. If the cell network goes down, unfortunately, there's not going to be much you can do, and if your Wi-Fi goes out as well. But keep your phone charged for absolutely as long as possible, meaning absolutely keep it plugged in. Don't just say, well, I'll let it run down and then plug it in. No, leave it plugged in, especially as much as you may be using it to maybe watch our streaming coverage on our KPLC First Alert weather app. And those of you wondering, you can do that. If you have our weather app on your smartphone, all you have to do is scroll down in that app and you'll find a live feature button, and you'll be able to watch our live coverage right there in the weather app. Another thing you can do, if for some reason something happens with the app and you're not able to watch, we will be also simulcasting as long as our television signal is available. We will be simulcasting on the Town Square Media Group radio stations. That's Gator 99.5, 92.9 The Lake, 107 Jams, and 92.1, I believe. I know it's definitely Gator 99.5. All of their group will be simulcasting us, though I will admit, I'm not so certain our television signal will be able to stay on the air during all of this, or if their facility may be able to stay up and running. So, but as long as it is humanly and physically possible, those would be sources of information for you to be able to listen to us give you information during the height of this storm. One final thing, and this is a little bit more grim, but if you are going to said safe location in your home, I would really advise you to take a hammer or a crowbar, or maybe really both with you if you have one. The idea there being, if your home does collapse in around you, you would have at least a few tools to maybe be able to kind of help pick your way on out of your home. So Another thing to think about, and I realize many of you may not have an option to leave at this point, and if that's you, again, please think about those ideas as far as the safe place in your home to be able to get there and to stay in that safe location. So let's go back to the radar. Meteorologist Jacob Durham is here, and he's going to kind of drive things for us, and we'll look at the radar because this is the kind of first outer band of Hurricane Laura that is moving across. I was driving in from this through this a little bit earlier this afternoon coming into the TV station. I've been doing a few things kind of behind the scenes with some of our prep work here in the last hour or so, but drove through some of this very heavy rain. I'll tell you, here in Lake Charles, when it was raining the heaviest, it was very breezy. Winds were up to nearly 30-mile-per-hour winds during those heaviest rain bands, and of course, that's nothing compared to what we're going to end up seeing very soon. Now, you've seen tornado warnings. You've seen Jacob and Ben on with those as well. You can see some over in the kind of south of the Baton Rouge vicinity. I fully expect to see many more of those issued anywhere along this line potentially. That's very normal for a landfalling tropical system. It's just due to the pure physics of the storm. You've got a lot of rotation already with rain bands that wrap around a larger circulation, and then when you move those rain bands over land, it kind of changes the physics involved in those storms a little bit, and that makes it very easy to produce little spin-up tornadoes. These are relatively easy to track. Remember, once this hurricane makes landfall early tomorrow morning, it's going to be virtually impossible to track the little tiny spin-up tornadoes that may occur inside of a hurricane. Those are not something that the radar is really going to be able to pick up on very well. They happen. We know they happen during hurricanes, but I just want to advise you that being able to predict see a tornado, it's going to be impossible. And besides, if you adhere to all those rules I just said a minute ago about getting into a safe room and staying there during the storm, you're going to be protected as best you could be if you choose to stay. And again, we're really past the noon deadline I gave you yesterday if you were evacuating, but now there is a little window of time to at least think about that idea of evacuating from Southwest Louisiana. But if you're going to do it, please get to doing it soon, within the next couple of hours. Please don't wait much longer than that, because my fear is a traffic situation. All it's going to take is a wreck somewhere to slow down traffic, and the last thing you want to do is be trapped on the road during a potential landfalling hurricane. So a lot of parts here moving. I realize some folks have already evacuated. Those of you that are watching us from elsewhere, I know many of you have messaged me asking how you could watch our coverage. If you're watching us from afar, thank you for getting out and for watching. We're going to keep you posted as much as we can of what's going on at home. Let's zoom in a bit closer, Jacob, on this. I'll let you kind of drive, and we'll kind of show you some of the heavier rain bands going on. You can see very heavy rain, another band about to move through the city of Lake Charles, coming in from the east, already over to near the Chenault vicinity. You can see heavy rain, then more heavy rain northwest of Sulphur. Those individual showers are moving off toward the west, but the whole line is gradually moving farther and farther north. That's as the hurricane itself moves a bit closer. Let's slide east of here, Jacob, over toward Jeff Davis Parish. You can see the earlier rain around Lake Arthur has moved out, but there's more rain now around the Gaydon area. That's moving northwest. So heads up, you guys will see rain and storms very soon into the Lake Arthur vicinity as well. And of course, farther east out of our viewing area, but I realize some of you may be watching us in places wondering about the weather. You can see some pretty active storms going on between Lafayette and all the way across the Basin Bridge. Let's zoom in just a bit closer to the Baton Rouge vicinity. I know some folks probably have gone over toward the Baton Rouge vicinity, and you can see some of the storms here. There are multiple tornado warnings in effect. If you're watching our weather app for our coverage here in Southwest Louisiana, but say you're evacuated to Baton Rouge, I would encourage you to follow our sister station, that is WAFB. They are in Baton Rouge. They are the CBS affiliate for the Baton Rouge area. I would encourage you to follow them for specific information as it relates to the Baton Rouge vicinity. That includes places like Denham Springs, over to Walker, down toward Gonzales. So if you've evacuated in those areas and need to know information on these specific thunderstorms that are producing tornadoes, please follow my friends over there at WAFB. Jay Grimes and Steve Caparata and their whole crew will be tracking those for you, and we'll keep you posted. And if you've gone farther than that, Our Gray television network extends across really the country. We have stations everywhere, but again, I know a lot of folks always have an interest toward the Baton Rouge area. But yeah, let's look at that. That is interesting to see the eye already showing up on the radar. Let's do a quick math here. We'll kind of do the numbers there. To the center of the eye, about 185 miles. Jacob's got his phone out. I know what he's doing. He's going to tell me the number about 11 hours from now. So we're at almost 2 p.m. So about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll give the Hurricane Center credit. That's what they've been saying for the last 2 days, was a landfall near what we call in meteorology 6Z, or about 1 a.m. That's pretty close if it stays on its current speed. Now, if it slows down, speeds up, that changes that. Let's also, while you have the measuring tool, go back down there and zoom in on the eye. How wide is this eye? And you may want to stop this looping to see. It's impressive to see that this is 180 miles offshore and to see this eye already. That is a huge eye, nearly 40-mile wide eye. Just proves how big this storm is. And something else we'll have to watch for, and this will be something from the Hurricane Hunter plane, if this eye contracts further, that would be a sign of an even strengthening storm. And I know Jacob's got something to tell me.
Yeah, Eugene Island is already reporting 3.2 foot worth of storm surge and inundation of water above ground. So that's ground level above 3 feet already.
Yeah, and for those of you asking, I had a few people ask, what is this new thing about storm surge, AGL, above ground level? It's a much simpler way of doing it. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago when we started the storm surge issue, it was based on, sometimes it was what was called mean low tides or mean sea level pressure. And to be honest, no one knows what their elevation is for the most part. And you certainly don't know what mean low tide means in your location. So the Hurricane Center moved away from that idea and moved to this above ground level thing, which makes it much easier to determine as far as that. And I'll say, before I came here to the station, I did a quick little drive around just to see a couple of spots, and I drove underneath the I-10 bridge here in Lake Charles, of course, where the boat launch is, right there near the yacht club. And the lake itself is already up here in Lake Charles. The water itself is already up. I'd estimate about a foot higher than normal already. And we're 180 miles from the hurricane, and that's only going to get worse. Even though the winds are more westerly at the moment, the whole Gulf is kind of being pushed toward the coastline, and it has nowhere to go but up all of the various river streams and other water bodies, and then just gradually rises all the way up those water bodies. And there is the storm surge potential once again across the area, and you'll notice some very disturbing info. That's the everywhere where you see red indicates at least 9 feet. And I say at least because it very well will be more than that in many areas. Once again, I think we've driven home the idea of Cameron Parish is going to be the absolute ground zero for this. And above ground level amounts here, about 15 feet at least. They may have gone even higher than that in some cases. It's quite possible that there could be a near 20-foot rise in water levels. Our coast, unfortunately, is very, very prone to surge. We've seen that with Rita and Ike. Ike was only a Category 2 hurricane that made landfall nearly 100 miles away and was still able to produce a catastrophic storm surge. So imagine what a near Category 4 to potentially Category 5 hurricane is going to be able to do to the Gulf of Mexico. It's just very easy. Anyone that, if you boat or whatnot, if you've been offshore, that the water is just very shallow for a long period of time out over the Gulf, and shallow water is very easy to move. I used to, before coronavirus, go visit schools a lot and would talk about this with the various school children. And I use the analogy on this, and it works. This is why storm surge is such a major problem here. If you have a swimming pool or ever been in some sort of swimming pool and you try to move water, if you take your hands and kind of do that, sure, you're going to move some water, but you're not going to move a lot. If you do the same thing in a bathtub, which is much shallower, you're able to move probably the majority of the water out of the bathtub. Well, unfortunately, in that scenario, we are kind of the bathtub mentality here because the water is so shallow. There's just so much water it's able to move. Whereas if you go somewhere like off the east coast of my home state of Florida, places like even Miami, all the way up through the Jacksonville area, the water gets very deep offshore very quick. It's much harder for a surge to happen. It happens, but it's not to this degree normally. And if you don't mind, I know the Hurricane Hunter plane is out there. The Air Force jet is there. I was looking at that before I walked in the door about 45 minutes ago. Let's see what their latest report is, because I'm curious to look at the air pressure readings, because there was one that was way earlier. I assume that was probably yesterday, that one.
That's got to be the one now.
That might have been NOAA. I'm not sure. That was NOAA's plane. So they had a 953 millibar air pressure as one of their last readings, and we may have to use that website too to do that. I'm not sure, but there should be an Air Force mission out there now. Jacob's pulling that up live on the fly and kind of throwing a lot of things at him. I think that one might be it.
That's the latest one.
So
45.
So I said 953,
953
correct? So we've gone to 945 millibars as far as the air pressure. Remember, when the air pressure continues to fall, the wind speeds go up. It's an inverse relationship. If you know math at all, inverse meaning as one goes one direction, the other one goes the opposite direction. So falling air pressure always means the wind speeds are going to continue to increase. And unfortunately, that's the scenario that is still playing out. They're going to be out there for a while, Air Force mission. They've only been out there a little while. It looks like maybe another plane is heading.
That's the same mission.
Okay, that's the same one. Okay, so they're making another round. They're going to go up probably a little closer to the coast. They'll make another turn, maybe to the south or maybe back to the east. I'm not sure which kind of diagonal they're going to run here on this one, but they'll be flying this hurricane and getting us valuable information that will definitely feed the 4 o'clock advisory, which will be coming from the Hurricane Center in about 2 hours with the latest forecast update. But I've been asked to, I was talking to my good friend Mike Swallow from Gator 99.5 a little earlier, and he was asking me, and I've heard several others ask me as well, could this storm move? Could it change course? And unfortunately, at this point, that answer is no. It would take a just major, absolute major unforeseen change in the weather pattern to do that, and I just don't see that scenario playing out. The only thing that could change at this point, there will be these little nudges or even wobbles, as we call them in the meteorology world, where the storm may briefly jog more north and then more west and then more north again. But in the grand scheme, little nudges and wobbles are not going to matter to us. All it would change would be maybe the official landfall point is at point A and it slides 5-10 miles away from point A. That's it. But remember, I just showed you that this eye is nearly 40 miles wide. Let's do some math on that. Zoom into the coastline of Cameron, if you will, and will you ignore my phone call? Sorry to just slide it to the right. Sorry, I have my Bluetooth in as well in case I have any very, very important information that comes in, can be able to listen to that. Sorry to my good buddy Jason Abear, though. Actually, I want to do it the other way. Let's do along the coastline. Let's measure from Johnson Bayou where we go to get 40 miles east of Johnson Bayou. I think I know this answer, but let's do it because I just want to show you. So if the eye makes landfall, if it crosses directly at Cameron, the whole eye would go from Grand Chenier to Johnson Bayou. And if you take that idea and then slide it farther west, if the landfall itself was at Johnson Bayou, half of that would be the edge of the eye wall, is still from Cameron to Johnson Bayou. So that's why I want to stress, little nudges or wobbles in this storm do not matter at this point unless there is some, like I said, unforeseen change in the weather pattern. But we're to the point now that's just unlikely to happen. 12 hours out from a landfall, it just doesn't happen. So little wobbles here and there will happen, which will affect what we officially call the landfall point, which is where the center of the eye crosses a coastline. But it's inconsequential if that occurs at Johnson Bayou, at Cameron, or Grand Chenier. It does not matter at this point where the eye makes landfall because the impacts are going to be felt. And remember, that was just the width of the eye. you have the eye wall to contend with. And let's jump back down there to the hurricane. And I realize we're 180 miles from the radar, but let's kind of stop this from looping real quick, if you will, Jacob, and see right here all of this orange and red right on the edge of this. That is the eye wall. That is where the winds are going to be the most intense. That's where you're going to have your 140 or stronger mile-per-hour winds are going to be located in this eye wall. And as bad as it is to have the hurricane eye pass over you, you really want to know the worst place to be? It's right here, to be stuck in the eastern eye wall and never get into the eye of the hurricane. I can tell you from experience that that is an absolute horrible place. We did kind of experience that here with Rita in Lake Charles. My parents, we live in a small town called Arcadia, Florida, which is south of the Tampa area. They went through Hurricane Charlie in 2004, which in some instances has done or did what Laura is doing, in that it rapidly intensified up until landfall. The difference being Charlie's winds were about the width of this eye, whereas the hurricane force winds on this storm, Jacob, can you find that number? The width of it's probably in the advisory from the Hurricane Center. The maximum extent of the hurricane force winds, I'm sure we're talking nearly 100 miles out as far as the width. It should be in the public advisory. It should say somewhere down toward the bottom as far as when it gets into the wind impact. It'll say tropical storm force winds extend so far. And I apologize, I don't have all those numbers off the top of my head, but that's why we have a team working. And Jacob will get that for me in a second. He's reading through it, and I know I'm putting him on the fly, but I know just from the storm structure that those winds extend way out from the hurricane itself.
All right, hurricane force winds extend up to 70 miles from the center, and the tropical storm force winds extend outward to 175.
So the eye itself is about 40, so that means you get 20 miles to the eye wall. So if it's, you said 75, that means you're talking another 55 to nearly 60 miles from the eye wall is how far the hurricane force winds impact. So maybe do that from the center of the eye, if you will, and kind of measure out and go 75 miles. And that'll kind of give you an idea. That means basically out to about that rain band is where your hurricane force winds are going to be, is right there. And